before. You can't just say, well, this is the only thing I know. And even, we know at our own current job, not my job, doesn't get you very far. Right? It'll get you shown the door. Being able to expand your skills and not just this is all I know, being able to develop new skills, becoming more valuable to the company, being able to build your resume, being able to offer new ideas, new concepts. That's awesome. And that's really what allows Imagineers to help and allow us to just marvel at everything they do. Whether it's picking the right music, writing the right music, anything that really helps the fans to come in and go back. I don't, unless it's a money issue or whatever reason you're not out there all the time. You know what you're going to get when you go. You know what rides you look forward to going on, and there's a reason for that. There's a reason Robert is back.
And I'm sorry about that, guys. Um, yeah, I had a technical issue there. Hopefully, I don't know if the feed might have cut off. I'm so sorry about that, but we are ready to go. We are live here. Brittany just texted and said she's going to be joining soon, shortly. So we certainly appreciate that, and we definitely appreciate you guys sticking with us as we get through these shows here. Now, with this here, now to your point, speaking of Imagineering and the company, it's become such a in the last, I think, like 10 years, I think, and maybe it's been more so, maybe it's been some in the past too, but Imagineering has always been kind of the unsung heroes. They were never like the cool kids on the block. They always designed the attractions, but people didn't necessarily like think of them as like the rock stars. And I think now, especially with things like D23 and some of those are fan groups, and especially with the advent of podcasts and getting to interview these people, they've really shown up as rock stars now. They're the rock stars, they're the ones that are designing this. They're inspiring people every day when they see these attractions to see what the Imagineers have done. Their words when they talk at conventions and things like that really resonate with people, and everyone's asking, how do I be an Imagineer? How do I become an Imagineer? How do I do this? How do I do that? So, they're their prowess, their sort of rock star, celebrity fame has really come up. And it's really neat to see, them sort of rise and become, almost faces for Disney. I mean, people follow them on Twitter you know, to ask them random questions about attractions or just things in general, to see them post things of what they're working on. And of course, when there's no NDA, um, because a lot of Imagineers are buried in NDAs. So to see their sort of rise up and become sort of the Rockstars, which is totally deserved. I mean, Bob Gurr is celebrated in every way, and he should be. I mean, that man is a living legend. I mean, he designed the Omni Mover, which if you don't know what that is, that's the ride vehicles for a lot of Disney attractions. That's Haunted Mansion, that's Little Mermaid. There's a lot of attractions that use that old school Omni Mover setup, and it's amazing. And there's so many stories about how they came up, and it's almost like Disney folklore hearing these stories, and some of them are definitely true. And like the story about the candy apples and the building the Omni Movers. But there's also all kinds of other stories as well. But I do see that Brittany, hello Brittany, welcome to our discussion here.
Hi.
We are actually talking about Imagineering and their impact on not just the theme parks, but also society as well. And I was talking about how amazing it is, the creations that these Imagineers create. People like Bob Gurr, who have built so many things that move on property, or Joe Rohde that basically made you know, Animal Kingdom what it is and things like that. Do you have any is there anything in your mind that stands out when it comes to Imagineering or designing these amazing attractions that really sticks out to you that makes you say, "Wow, how did they do that?" or "I can't believe they were able to do that?"
Oh my goodness. I'd actually say there's quite a bit. I mean, to me, honestly, the whole Pandora thing,
Mhm.
it's mind blowing. Like, I'm actually not a huge Avatar fan, but just the
Mhm.
way that that was designed, it's kind of like mind boggling. Like, just, I think for me, even my husband and I have talked, like, Imagineers, they have, it's every little detail. Like, it's so intricate and I don't know. It's just mind blowing. Another one is in California Adventure Park, Cars Land. Like
Yes,
you totally walk
100%.
in and you feel like you are in the movie Cars. I mean, they do a fantastic job, I think, of making that seem so realistic. So I don't know. I mean, I have the utmost respect for the Imagineers and what they do. I admire them so much because it is just they have like a whole different mindset of things. like,
Yeah, you're 100% correct, and I can tell you, you know, it's amazing when, you know, people ride an attraction and they don't understand how difficult it is to make things work the way that they do, especially when you think of Cars Land. And one of the scenes that stands out to me very vividly is that scene where you kind of roll around the curve there and then you roll up to like the canyon and you see the rock work and your car slows down and you just hear that music and having that, you know, that synchronicity of the music and the rolling through and the slowdown and every that whole sequence to how that whole thing just happens is such a testament to the level of detail that, you know, Imagineering puts into their work. And, you know, it's so amazing to see. And, you know, I really think a lot of stuff now, they are definitely, you know, showing off or flexing their muscles, as some might say, when it comes to the parks, especially with the new stuff that they've done at Epcot. You know, I think it's amazing what they've done with the new World Celebration hub at Epcot. So it's, you know, Imagineering has a history of making the unbelievable believable and setting the standard for everyone else to follow. And it's just amazing to watch.
I definitely agree.
And I think what you were saying about how these folks become mini celebrities in the Disney fandom, there were two schools. You had where Imagineers weren't allowed to sign their work, and
Mhm.
everything had to just be anonymous. But then you had Walt introducing these folks to the world through his Disneyland TV show. And I guess he figured out who could be a good ambassador and who's the right person that I can put in front of them. And having interviews, on TV with Rolly Comp and having him be the one instead of Walt introducing these projects, having some of the guys on his team working on these projects be the ones who are introducing them, because I guess they knew it best.
That's totally correct. And even seeing not even Imagineering that he put on there, but also like having the Sherman Brothers go on there and play some of their tunes, you know. So Walt has had a history of showcasing that, and I think that when Walt passed, I think that kind of went away. But I also feel like too that back then Walt had sort of a core group of Imagineers that he could really show off, you know, that was working on Disneyland and so on and so forth. And I think Imagineering got so big that it became a little more difficult to show those off. And you know, there's so many teams that work on one project and so many people that work on one project. So, you know, it's it's very, but like I said, it's very interesting to see now with the advent of social media how they've really stepped out and become, kind of their own celebrities.
And which is where fans, most people don't care to look up and see the names on Main Street and understand who the brilliant minds are behind the parks. But it's us that will stop and check out and see what names we recognize and figure out what the hidden meanings behind the windows are. And the fact that they could give that little nod to the folks, I mean, that essentially is signing their name and honoring these legends and these Imagineers, and seeing, is this something they can continue with? Are you out of room? Or do we keep adding folks? They're never going to take them away. It's not like, oh, Marty Sklar is deceased. Let's take his window down and put up somebody else. So that lasting tribute to these folks that have built these parks that we still marvel at today.
And it's not even that. It's, I've touched on this before. It's things. I mean, people don't realize that some things that Disney has created, like for example, the People Mover, are actual things that became kind of a thing a little bit. The People Mover, they have this system in airports. They have this in, they have a miniature version of the People Mover that shuttles people to Congress. From one building to the next. They have a little underground tunnel system that does it. So, and you can look this up on YouTube. There's tons of it. There's videos of people actually riding it and so on and so forth. But these are all based off of the same linear induction motor system that Disney created for the People Mover. It's based off of that system. So, Disney has a research and development team, which is amazing. And if you look up some of the things that they've been working on, it's simply groundbreaking stuff. And, a lot of things, and Disney does create a lot of things that, that are used in regular life. So it's amazing to see that. And it's amazing to see I have to say right now, what's really amazing for me to see is the explosion of Disney and Imagineering utilizing tech and really utilizing our phones and our devices and everything that we wear with us to, even from mundane tasks as getting us into the parks to giving us more interactivity through the app inside the parks. And even more so than that, with like the Magic Band Plus and having it dance with the colors and things like that. And those things seem trivial, but they're really, when you think about the, you know, 10, 15 years ago, we would have never imagined that this would have been something that, we would have all been a part of the show. We would have all had the show, kind of on our wrist. And it's amazing to see that progression. And I'm really excited for what Disney is going to produce with artificial intelligence, because I've seen companies that were at this year's International Amusement Parks and Attractions Expo. They had prototypes or animatronics that you could fully talk to and have conversations with. And with the way that AI works in terms of learning voice and having speech and copying people's speech, I mean, Apple just unveiled a new system that utilizes AI to copy your speech and basically preserve it forever. So if you ever lose your voice, you can still have your voice. And they can do this with all the characters, so on and so forth, and have, these things that you can really interact with. And it's going to be really interesting to see that. And I know they've tried that in the past with Mickey, with Talking Mickey, which is, I don't even think they really utilize the talking part of Mickey anymore. At least I haven't seen it the last few times I saw Mickey on Main Street. But it's really neat to see those things, and Disney constantly evolve and kind of be on the cutting edge, and I would say between the two major players in when it comes to the tech space would be Universal Creative and Imagineering, when it comes to what these people are putting in the parks and so on and so forth. And and when it comes to detail, and Universal gets a close second, especially with the things that they've done with Harry Potter and the worlds that they've created with that, which are, I mean, I'm not a Harry Potter fan, but I can imagine, stepping into that world. I mean, the way you do, especially at Universal Studios Orlando, stepping into Diagon Alley and just kind of being like, you walk through this wall almost, and you're in a whole nother world. It's just amazing to see that, and it's amazing, and they do that at Disney too. When you're in Fantasyland, you're in there, and it's amazing how we can be transported to these different worlds.
And I think even the way Brittany mentioned, just the way you get enveloped in Cars Land, and you're stepping into the movie.
Yeah. You're 100% right, and we definitely have Imagineering to thank for that. And I think that it's nice to see them get I mean, you take the good with the bad. You have, with social media now, you have this advent of people who treat them like rock stars and are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, I'm talking to this person. But then you have people that use their social media to vent these people. Why would you create this? Why did you do this way? This looks horrible. So you gotta kind of take the good with the bad. And unfortunately, there was Imagineers in the past that had to learn the hard way. You can't necessarily, you're kind of a mouthpiece for the company, so you have to, you can't say whatever you want to say. But it's morphed into something really cool, and it's cool. It's really awesome to see them have that. Do you have any thoughts on that, Brittany?
I mean, not. I think you guys pretty much covered most of it. I mean, I think I don't really have anything to add to that.
Mhm.
Like I said, just kind of reiterating kind of what we talked about. I think, yeah, I mean, yeah, you do have some people that, like you said, they, I don't want to say bash, but they do kind of, they're not fans of something that the Imagineers did. But then, I mean, yeah, you do have people that, kind of are doing what we do and talk about, the cool things that they've done and, the details and, like
Mhm.
we said, the worlds that they create. I mean, I mentioned Cars Land, but like Galaxy's Edge is another one that's very immersive. Um, even Toy Story Land, I personally think it's adorable. You walk in there and you feel like you're a toy. So yeah, I think
100%.
that's one of my favorite things about them is that they just have this ability to envelop you in this world, like whatever world that they're trying to create, they suck you into it and make you feel like you are a part of it.
And for
And
some
Toy
reason, I
Story
feel
is a
it less in Toy Story Land, where I don't get that sense of being a toy. But you said, for Black Spire Outpost over there in Star Wars Land, like one time it just hit me because you hear all the noise in the background and above you, and it just seems like it fits until you realize, wait a second, it really did sound like something flew over my head. And then you realize,
Mhm.
oh, it's right, I'm not actually somewhere. I'm at a theme park. So those little touches, that really, really make it an amazing experience.
And even like Galaxy's Edge, like the food. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the food in Galaxy's Edge, but it's really kind of out there and what you would probably expect, in Star
Mhm.
Wars world, it's so even like the detailing to the type of food you're eating in the lands it's pretty cool.
The storytelling that goes behind it is very cool. And I think it was you, Brittany, that was talking about like the details, and that's where Disney really excels. And you know, it's amazing how everything has a story, and even a little shop in Hollywood Studios has a story. When they come out with something new, there's a story. So that really is, I think that's, if I remember, they say you always start with a story, and that's what what Disney excels at. They kind of build out that story, what this is going to be, what the backstory is, and then actually go ahead and create that. I've also heard too, um, that the and this again, Disney likes to tie things together. And one of the things, we all know the Jungle Cruise, which is a fantastic attraction. And the Jungle Cruise is basically run by the Society of Explorers, um, and they basically uh, ran Adventurers Club, or Adventurers Club was their club at Pleasure Island, and a lot of people, have fond memories of that. And that sort of Adventurers Club, Society of Explorers, has kind of morphed in. What I recently heard is that when they build the new Space Mountain in Tokyo, which is going under refurb soon, and is going to be redone completely, that is going to have a backstory that ties in with those adventurers, and that now they're going to be exploring space. So that is really cool that they, are potentially tying in that to that group into now space travel. So it's really neat to see all these stories kind of come together and make one cohesive thing. It's not just like a roller coaster. That roller coaster has a story. And even with like things like Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, there's still that story in there. There's still that scene at the end that grabs you when you look over to the right and you look out the door, and there's the Wicked Queen right there. It's just it's amazing how these stories envelop you, and you get stuck into that ride story, and it's not just about you going there and seeing the characters. It's like seeing a brand new movie or a brand new short or something of that nature, because that's what you're experiencing in that ride, especially with look at Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. That's its own story in itself. It's a prime example of that, and it does a great job of putting you on this crazy mine train, and you're basically kind of in the cartoon now. That, which is amazing.
You gotta remember, if you want to talk backstory, we can either thank or blame Michael Eisner for a good chunk of all the backstories that Disney came out with. In the 90s, that man went crazy with backstories for resorts, and Blizzard Beach has a story, and Pleasure Island, we're going to invent this character, and now Merriweather Pleasure, and Blizzard Beach, and what's the other one? Typhoon Lagoon. They both have to have a backstory. It can't just be a water park. We need to have a story to tell about how that boat got to the top of that geyser point. So that was all crazy Eisner running wild there, but that allows people to go to Wilderness Lodge and figure out, wait, so this came where? And then they had the newspapers for a while, and those went away. And it was cost cutting or lack of interest or what it was, but you could get the story printed, and somebody had
Yeah.
to sit there and write that. That was their job. The way some of the early Imagineers were in charge of writing scripts for Walt or writing scripts for the attractions and coming up with these official press releases. Sklar did that, a couple other guys. So thank you, Mr. Eisner.
Yeah, and I think that really, I mean, we always had storytelling inside Disney parks. We always did, but not to the level of detail, like you said. And I really feel like, you know, it you know, that's what sets Disney apart from everyone else. And even more so, I think I think Universal too. Because even though Universal may have the same when it comes to the level of detail that Disney does in some respects, but they don't necessarily like give every attraction a backstory. It's just like, hey, you're now in Diagon Alley. Welcome to Diagon Alley. That's great. But and maybe I'm wrong, and people will correct me if I am, but I don't feel like there's a backstory for something like a Hogwarts or Diagon Alley. I mean, yes, I mean the ride does have somewhat of a story. You're going through Hogwarts school, so on and so forth. But it's more of like, you know, just recreating it and being there. Where like Star Wars or Galaxy's Edge, there's stories around every corner, and it's almost like seeing a new movie. You know, it's almost like you're in the movie. Like this is a new movie that's being created, and you're in it, and these stories are coming from Galaxy's Edge, and every shop, so on and so forth, has its own story. So it's it goes way. My point is, it goes way more than just being inside Avatar. It goes way more than being inside Galaxy's Edge. It's deep. It's much deeper than that, and that's what sets Disney apart from the rest. And it definitely, sets them apart from a Six Flags or some sort of regional theme park or regional amusement park. They're not, it's huge.
I think it's also because what Disney did was create new experiences where you don't need a backstory for Hogwarts Castle because you have 7 books, and we're taking this from a printed book and we're bringing it to you in 3D for you to live and experience. You don't need the backstory necessarily.
Yes.
You can walk through and get a sense of the ride from their amazing cues, all their indoor cues and the animatronics that they built into that, where you don't necessarily get that in Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. But to create new things, that's where Disney goes above and beyond. They didn't just take a planet that we knew. We came up with a whole new planet, but in order to do that and for the fans to appreciate it, those who want to know, we'll give you a backstory. And if you want to go explore and use your phone and do all the interactive bits with the app, that just immerses you even more.
Yeah, I totally agree. And please don't take this the wrong way. I don't want anybody that watches this or anybody that works for Universal Creative or them to think that I don't think that you guys don't put backstories in your attractions. I know you guys do. It's just not. I had the same feelings as you, Michael. I've always felt, especially when the first time I went into Hogwarts or I went to Diagon Alley, I felt like kind of out of place because I'd never watched the movies. That I was just like, okay, this is nice, but like, I don't really understand what's going on. But I feel like even if you never seen Toy Story and you walked into Toy Story Land, I still feel like you could figure out the gist of what's going on. I think in Star Wars too, you could kind of figure out like, okay, this is what we're doing. Because there's a lot of like pre-show preamble. There's a lot of, sort of acting from the cast members that goes into play too, and these attractions too, that really sets the tone for what you're getting yourself into, instead of just waiting in line for an attraction, getting on attraction and getting off an attraction. Prime example would be I can't think of the name now. In Galaxy's Edge, the most current attraction. When
Rise
you
of the
walk in
Resistance.
there, yeah, Rise of the Resistance. My brain is not working today. But when you go and Rise and then they open the door and you see all the stormtroopers and everything else, and the cast members are dressed up like the people on the ship, and they are just being rude with you and telling you to stand in a straight line. That all adds to the ambiance and gives you that story right there and tells you everything you need to know. And you can come in there a complete newbie and know everything you need to know. And I really think that's really good for Disney, because it takes these younger kids that don't know these franchises and gets them excited about it. They remember that the lightsaber battle inside, Galaxy's Edge, or they remember, seeing them standing there and shouting at you and things like that. They remember that, and then they're like, wow, I gotta check that out and see what this is all about, see what these stories are all about, and it kind of pushes them to watch those movies.
Would either of you be offended if they mix the characters? I know they're trying to really stick to storyline, but for me personally, it doesn't enhance or take away from the experience within the park if I saw some character who was killed off in one of the shows, but because he doesn't fit with the timeline, And I don't know if it's just a matter of age, and some of the young kids might not know them. But to have that generation stormtrooper, if you had Darth Vader walking through the streets, would that destroy the experience for you?
I personally don't think it would. I mean, I'm a huge Darth Vader fan. So I actually have told my husband, like, I'm upset actually that Galaxy's Edge does not have Darth Vader walking through. Like, they don't make a big to do about Darth Vader. And again, I do see where, like, you're coming from, where I think the newer generation, they may not know who that is, but that still was a huge part of Star Wars, like Darth Vader was. So yeah, I've actually said that kind of, for me, I really wish that they had Darth Vader walking around Galaxy's Edge.
And meanwhile, while your child might not know who Darth Vader is, the two people who funded this trip and are taking her into Star Wars area certainly know who this character is. So you got to pander to
Exactly.
you got to cater to the adults and the kids.
True. And like, my husband's a huge Star Wars fan, and he's even said that too. Like, Darth Vader's a favorite for us. So yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to them having the newer characters, but yeah, bring back the older as well for, our generation and the,
The
older generations, even, because that was a thing for us and the older generations.
the problem is with that, I feel is like as more and more people have a voice, and more people want things to be the stories that they are. They want Darth Vader does not fit in Galaxy's Edge because he's not in this time frame, so on, whatever. And when it comes to the movie, and that's fine. I honestly don't ever see them putting Darth Vader in there in the area. But I mean, I mean, I'll say it like this. So they used to have, I don't know if any of you remember this, but they used to have Star Wars weekends. And Star Wars weekends was one of the greatest things they had going at Hollywood Studios. And I'm really bummed that they got rid of it because that was like really that was I had a lot of good times at Star Wars weekends. Like between meeting a lot of the cast that was in the movies and hearing them do Q&As and then just all the other stuff that went on with that. It was amazing. And there was sort of a shift because at Star Wars weekends they always ended with like a fireworks show, and then like before that there was like a dance off, like a dance show, and they would have the characters come out and do dance routines and just be normal like people, breaking away from being Darth Vader to being Darth Vader who moonwalks. And you can look up the videos online. I mean, it's to this day they still get tons of views. And I remember them saying it was canceled and they weren't doing that show anymore. And it was kind of the death of Star Wars weekends. And a big reason why is Star Wars just didn't want the characters to be silly. They didn't want them to be human. They wanted them to be what they were. Some of the fans didn't want them to be, silly and kind of humorous. But I always thought that was the greatest thing ever because it really took it made Star Wars has always kind of been like the first, you know, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, those movies, like those were just phenomenons. So everyone watched those. They got the story. Everyone watched those. And then as it went later on, and the more movies came out, it became more like, sort of a geeky thing. You had to kind of be into it. And I'm not saying that they're not huge. They obviously are, but people really took it seriously and they weren't, I don't want to say they weren't made for everybody, but the storylines became more involved. And you know, I really felt like this Star Wars weekends, especially with the little dance show that they did, it really made Star Wars for everybody. It made it something that everybody could enjoy, whether you were a fan of Star Wars or not, you could watch Darth Vader do the moonwalk, and it was one of the greatest things you had ever seen. And that's why, I mean, anytime anyone would post a video of it on YouTube, it would blow up to 1 million views in 24 hours because it was the greatest thing ever. So it still blows my mind that they don't do anything like that anymore. I kind of understand why they don't do it, because they want to keep the integrity of the characters. But in the same regards, it's just fun. It's just, it's like Darth Vader blowing off some steam and having some fun, and it's cute. The kids love it, the adults love it. You know, just look up the videos. You will be smiling from ear to ear just watching one of these. I mean, they're just fantastic, silly fun. I'm really bummed we don't have stuff like that anymore. I know Disney wants to take it more seriously, and they've done it with all the characters. There's not really that much like you don't see Spider-Man and dance off or things like that. And I don't feel like it. I mean, maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think maybe Disney feels like it cheapens the brand, but I don't think it does. I think it makes it more fun and relatable, and I think it makes it more, more fun for people that may not be into that, and it gets them out to the parks to see that, because they may not like Star Wars. They may not want to watch all the Star Wars movies, but they may want to see, you know, the characters come out, Princess Leia dance on stage and things like that. So that's just my opinion.
And I think what Disney is doing, it's not even the Imagineers who are dictating how these things go. It's Disney corporate saying, okay, this is what we want to promote, and we're going to shoehorn in this new movie into Star Tours, whether you want to see it or not, whether folks know it or not. We're going to put in these segments. We might take out the Charlie Tribute. For a while, you couldn't get any of the old stuff. And then people, as you said, people have a voice, and they start, okay, we got to go put this back in, put that back in. And now they can blend it, because I believe for a while they took out the randomness, and you were going to go to these new worlds that you're going to see in this movie as a way of promotion. But that's not some Imagineers decision. That's Disney corporate. So these Imagineers have to operate within the world Disney wants.
And that is most certainly true, especially seeing as when you're dealing with movies and IPs, you're not like dealing with Disney parks. You're dealing with the motion picture side of Disney. They're the ones like kind of footing it, comes out of kind of their budget. So they're the ones kind of footing the bill for these attractions almost. And or so I've been told, and that's how this works. And they want to have as much input as possible. And I also think the Imagineers do add their own touches, especially it goes really deep with their details. But one of the things I always enjoy just describing the detail of Disney is the tangled restrooms inside Magic Kingdom. There is no reason that we need a bathroom that looks like Tangled, like the movie Tangled. We do not need that for any way, shape, or form, but it's there and it's glorious. And on top of that, they put the little hidden Pascals, the little iguanas, all over the little thing for you to search for, and it's little details like that that Disney does, and it's walking around the galaxy's edge looking in the ground for a hidden Mickey. It's things like that. The fans want that. The fans enjoy that. The people that are coming in, the regular guests that are not huge fans, they'll love the attraction, the thrill, so on and so forth. And Disney catches them with that. But the hidden Mickeys, the Pascals, the little details that you have to hunt for that are almost a game in the park, where you can walk around with your family and be that guy that's just a totally obnoxious and says, look, there's a hidden Mickey. Oh, there's another one. There's one over there. And I'm totally that guy. So when you can be that guy for a fan, there's nothing better. In my personal opinion, and I think a lot of fans would feel the same way.
And for folks who don't care to see it, you're not going to lose anything by not looking for them. They're there for the people that want to see it. They're not in your face. They're not in the way. You don't, oh, I didn't have a good time. I didn't look for, any scavenger hunts. It's there for those who want to take part. So that's awesome.
That is 100% awesome, and I think that's what, again, I keep saying this, but that's what separates Disney from everyone else. And even back in the day when you had designers like the team that designed the awesome mural outside of the land pavilion, that beautiful stone kind of mosaic tile mural out in front there. And for those of you that don't know, if you look at that, there is one. They at the time they were not allowed to sign anything, like Michael said. They couldn't sign their artwork. It was there. So what they did was they put one little gold piece, and if you find that gold piece in the artwork, and I don't remember where it is, I'd have to look. I know where it is. I could point to it, but I don't know where it is. How to describe it. But when you find that gold piece, that's their signature. But going back to Imagineering, and thinking of Epcot, essentially, a lot of people take for granted a lot of the things that happen at the parks, that are marvels in themselves that we don't see, like the utilidors, having the system underground that takes you all across Magic Kingdom. Um, you know, we do see the gardens in Epcot, but knowing that the gardens supply a lot of the vegetables that they eat inside the parks, especially with the garden grill, all their vegetables come from the garden. The you know Disney World, well, all the parks, but Disney World in general is a well-oiled machine. I mean, it's a city in itself. The setup by Imagineering and all these great teams that you know make things happen that we don't even think about. Even the simplest of things, that making sure we have clean bed sheets inside the contemporary. The feat that goes into making sure that happens. There's not like there's just a lot involved with that.
And even the urban planning that goes into it, and giving you the back entrances and keeping the important internal buildings and services off the main road, so you're not driving down World Drive and passing the bank and passing the laundromat and passing casting and costuming. They're there. You can get to them. Side roads, understanding that guests don't need to see that on their trip.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, you're totally right. And having that, and having line of sight is a huge thing. If you saw the front of Magic Kingdom and then you saw the back of Magic Kingdom, it would blow your mind. I still remember the first time that I saw the back of Magic Kingdom. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy." Seeing where the trains go at night, seeing where the monorails go at night, seeing all those buildings that make the magic happen is just, it's crazy. It's crazy to think of the thought and planning that went into creating all the things and making all this happen. And people just, Disney is magic. It's, you know, even Disneyland, I mean, it's all magic. How these things all happen, how they create millions of churros, a day. These are all things that Disney has perfected, and it's amazing to think of the systems they have in place to that make all these things we kind of take for granted happen.
Yeah, one of
Especially
my
when you
favorite
think of
things.
the
Go ahead.
what was that?
That was something. One of my favorite things is going down that road that you talked about and getting to see that back area and some of the fireworks launch stations that they have fenced off, and seeing where they park the monorail at night. Where's the train go after hours? Things that you don't necessarily get to see, and making that turn, even though it says official, it's a through road, and I love being able to view those areas.
Yeah, it's amazing to see. I've actually been back there once when they were pulling in the train into the station, and they actually had to, close off the road and pull it in, and that was it's just it's amazing to think of that Disney has all this stuff, and Disney and when you think about it too, I mean, the parks themselves, I mean, well, Disney World in general is a 24/7 operation. When Disney shuts down at night, that's when the cleaning crews come in. That's when the people that are doing refurbishments come in. All these people come in and work overnight to make the park amazing. The teams that put in the Christmas displays, all these things, they happen overnight. So Disney really is there's a documentary, I think it was National Geographic or one of them, that talks about like a modern city, Walt Disney World or something of that nature, and it's really fascinating when you think about everything that goes into actually making Disney work, because we always see the attractions and everything else, but we never see the behind the scenes stuff. And you know, it's really interesting to think how they make that work.
You're right. You're not going to get that place cleaned up, 2 hours after or before the park opens or closes. That's your all night. You don't want to paint while folks are there. That should be looking fresh the next morning. I was at Wilderness Lodge one time, couldn't sleep, and I'm just roaming around 3, 4 in the morning, and they were out there painting the Humphrey the Bear totem pole. I'm like, well, I've never seen this before. Little silly things like that you do get to see because you can't go into the park after hours, but you can see some of the behind the scenes magic going on at your resort if you happen to be awake.
Brittany, have you ever seen anything like that?
No, not really.
I guess you kind of have to be looking for it just a little bit, because they do a very good job of keeping it kind of hush hush. But I will say the one thing that I have not seen, which in regards to behind the scenes, that I swear one day I will make it happen, is at Wilderness Lodge, their Christmas tree, if is pretty amazing the way that they install it, because it comes in like sections, and they have to pull up the floor. They have a special section of the flooring that pulls up, and they put the tree, like they pull up the flooring, they put the tree in, and then they put the flooring back down. And it's just the way it's been described to me, I'm not doing it justice. It just sounds like something because I know people that just like to sit there and just watch them put this tree up. People that come every year and watch them do this. So, that travel here is part of their trip. They watch that with the family. So, and they of course do that at night. But it's amazing to think of, what they do. You can even go on YouTube. I think Disney has released some like time lapse transformations of going from Halloween to Christmas at Magic Kingdom and what that entails, and the massive teams that set that up. So it's really interesting to see that.
All thanks to Imagineering.
Yep, all things to Imagineering. So we're gonna close this out because we've been rambling on for a while here, and I will ask each of you, lastly here, what do you feel like is your greatest feat of Imagineering? What is the greatest thing that makes you say, "Oh my gosh," or make you turn your head, or say, "How did they do that?" Or just not only that, but make like immerse you in the story so well that you're just like, "Wow, this is incredible." And I'll start with Brittany.
I would say again, probably the top two that actually come to mind is Galaxy's Edge and Cars Land. Like I said, it's just mind blowing, and you really feel like you have escaped the real world and you are in that world.
Michael?
I'm always going to go with Spaceship Earth. You know, the hearing the construction, seeing what they did, and then it's not just a structure. Having an entire ride in there that can be swapped out and they keep updating. You know, to me, it's a more impressive feat than building a castle.
I can definitely agree with you there. I think my favorite though will always be the People Mover. It was such a groundbreaking tech when they made it. Um, it's right up there with me for the Carousel Progress. The idea of having a moving theater with the animatronics, and thinking back to, if you ever get the chance, I believe it's at Hollywood Studios now. I don't think it's at Disneyland anymore, but yeah, it's at Hollywood Studios. If you go into the little Walt Museum there at Hollywood Studios, they have they have the great moments with Mr. Lincoln, like animatronic, and they show you kind of the system they use to program him. And Bob Gurr was actually talking about this yesterday, and all the little knobs that they use to basically, they would take animate. They wanted to create something where animators who would normally animate on paper could animate these animatronics. And you know, all the knobs they had to turn in, all the detail, and this thing move this finger and this button move that finger, and so on and so forth. So all those intricacies and things that they built, you know, just to make Lincoln do what he does, or to make Rover bark in the Carousel Progress, or even the linear induction motors that make the People Mover go. You know, these are things that, you know, I think a lot of people, you know, they've been around so long, people don't see these things as revolutionary anymore, but they are, especially the animatronics nowadays. I mean, you look at the Navi River Journey, and you look at that, and the shaman animatronic in there that just moves so freely in her hands and does all these movements, and it's incredible. And every, it seems like every time we get a new ride, we get new animatronics that are better than they've ever been before.
Absolutely.
Well, guys, that's going to do it for this week's episode. I'm done rambling. No. I appreciate everyone who joined the feed. I appreciate my other ramblers with me, Michael and Brittany, for joining us tonight. It's always a pleasure having you guys on here. Thank you guys for joining us and chatting with us. And thank you to everyone who watched us live. Please note that you can watch these on YouTube. They will be on there forever, so you can always go back and check out our episodes. Still working on that podcast aspect of it, but we will get that out. But that being said, it's been real fun. I know we all had fun. Michael, did you have fun?
It was an enjoyable show.
And Brittany, I can tell, it looks like you had fun too, right?
I did, yes.
Awesome. Well, we definitely want to thank everyone for joining us tonight and watching this live. And of course, watch us and like and subscribe to this channel and this video. Hit that little notification bell so you get notified when we go live. But we do go live every Tuesday at 8:30 on the dot. And we will see you guys next week. Thank you for joining us. And I hope you have a magical mouse-filled week. Full of interesting topics and maybe some drinking at Epcot. Maybe not that. And I didn't say, I said water at Epcot, drinking water at Epcot.
Got to stay hydrated. So
Got to stay hydrated. All right, guys.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.